I'll never forget the sound of my mother hanging up on me. I was 23, handcuffed to a metal bench in a police station, begging her to believe me. The detective smirked as my ex-girlfriend Amber gave her statement in the next room. My father had already texted me not to ever contact the family again, saying they raised me better than this. My younger brother Eric blocked my number. Sitting alone in that cold room, I realized I'd lost everything before the truth even mattered. Let me take you back 3 days before that police station nightmare. 3 days before my entire world collapsed. I'd been living in Portland, Oregon, working at a decent marketing firm downtown. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills and gave me hope for the future. I shared an apartment with my girlfriend Amber. We'd been together for 18 months, and for the first year things were actually pretty good. She was fun, spontaneous, the kind of person who could make grocery shopping feel like an adventure. But somewhere around month 12, everything changed. She became controlling, jealous, the kind of jealous that makes you feel like you're walking on eggshells in your own home. She'd check my phone when I was in the shower. She'd interrogate me about every female coworker whose name I mentioned. If I came home 15 minutes late, she'd accuse me of cheating. I tried to make it work. I really did. I thought maybe she was just insecure, that if I was patient and reassuring, she'd relax. But it only got worse. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night. I'd been working on a project presentation on my laptop, sitting at our kitchen table. Amber walked in and saw I was messaging a coworker named Jessica about slide layouts. Just work stuff. Professional and boring. Amber exploded. Started screaming that I was obviously having an affair. When I tried to show her the messages to prove they were about work, she grabbed my laptop and threw it across the room. It hit the wall and shattered. 3 years of files, personal photos, everything, gone in an instant. That was it. I told her we were done. The relationship was over. I needed her to move out. She cried, apologized, begged me to reconsider. But I was finished. I'd given her too many chances already. She finally left 2 days later, taking her stuff while I was at work. I thought that was the end of it. I was so incredibly wrong. The next week, she started texting me. First, it was apologies and pleas to get back together. When I didn't respond, the messages changed. She wanted money, $3,000 for emotional damages, she called it. Compensation for the time she'd invested in our relationship, for the pain I'd caused her by ending things. I told her no. I'd already covered her share of the rent for 2 months after she moved out, even though I didn't have to. I'd been more than fair. She didn't take that well. The texts became threatening. Vague at first, then more specific. She said I'd regret not paying her, that I'd be sorry. I blocked her number and tried to move on. 2 days later, she showed up at my office. It was around 2 in the afternoon, middle of a regular workday. I was in a meeting with my boss and 2 clients when the receptionist knocked on the conference room door. Her face was pale. "There's someone here to see you," she said. "It's urgent." I excused myself and walked to the lobby. Amber was there, and she looked terrible. Her mascara was running down her face. Her shirt was torn at the collar. She had what looked like bruises on her arms. My stomach dropped. She started crying loudly, making sure everyone in the office could hear. She was saying I'd hurt her, that I'd forced myself on her, that she couldn't stay silent anymore. My boss appeared beside me within seconds. He pulled me aside, away from Amber, and told me to go home immediately. "Suspended pending investigation," he said. "Company policy." I tried to explain that this was insane, that we'd broken up weeks ago, that I hadn't even seen her since she moved out. But he wasn't listening. He was looking at Amber, at her tears and her torn shirt, and he'd already made up his mind. I grabbed my things and left, humiliated, while my coworkers stared. That same day, around 7 in the evening, Amber went to the police. She filed a formal report claiming I'd assaulted her the night before. She had photos of her bruises. She had the torn shirt. She had a whole story ready. The police showed up at my apartment at 11 that night. They knocked hard, announcing themselves. When I opened the door, confused and half asleep, they told me I was under arrest. They handcuffed me right there in my doorway while my neighbors watched from their apartments. I could see their faces, the judgment, The disgust. At the station, they processed me like I was already guilty. Fingerprints, mugshot, the whole degrading routine. They put me in a holding cell for 3 hours before anyone even talked to me. When the detective finally sat down across from me, he didn't ask for my side of the story. He told me Amber's version and waited for me to confess. I didn't confess because I hadn't done anything. I explained that we'd broken up weeks ago, that I hadn't seen her since she moved out, that this was retaliation for refusing to pay her money. The detective didn't believe me. Or maybe he just didn't care. While I was being processed, sitting in that cell, Amber was busy online. She'd posted on Facebook with my full name, my workplace, and my photo. She wrote a long post about being a survivor, about how I was a dangerous man, about how she was being brave by speaking out. She tagged it with local Portland groups and women's safety pages. Within hours, her post had hundreds of shares, thousands of views. My phone, which the police had taken but returned after processing, was exploding with notifications when they gave it back. Messages from people I'd never met, strangers sending death threats, people saying I should be locked up forever, saying I was scum. They released me on bail around 4 in the morning. I'd called a bail bondsman, used up almost all my savings to get out. I walked back to my apartment building as the sun was rising, exhausted and shell-shocked. My apartment building manager was waiting in the lobby. He didn't even let me get to the elevator. He told me that several neighbors had complained. They'd seen the social media posts. They didn't feel safe with me living there. He was giving me 30 days' notice to move out. I couldn't believe it. I'd just been arrested. I hadn't been convicted of anything. I hadn't even had a chance to defend myself. But I was already being punished, already being erased from my own life. That was when I understood the real nightmare was just beginning. The next morning, barely functioning on 0 sleep, I called my parents in Seattle. My mom Carol answered on the 3rd ring. I could hear the tension in her voice immediately. "Mom," I said, "something terrible has happened. I need to talk to you." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I already know. Amber called me yesterday." My blood went cold. Amber had contacted my mother? "Mom, whatever she told you, it's not true. She's lying. We broke up and she wanted money, and I said no. And now she's doing this to punish me. I didn't hurt her. I would never hurt anyone." "Chandler," my mother said, and her voice was hard, angry. Amber was sobbing on the phone. She told me everything. "How could you do this to that sweet girl?" I felt like I'd been punched. "Mom, please. You have to believe me. I'm your son. You know me." "I thought I knew you," she said. My father got on the phone. Robert, my dad. He was even worse. He didn't yell. He just spoke in this cold, disappointed tone that made me want to disappear. "We didn't raise a monster," he said. "Don't contact us until you've made this right. Apologize to that girl. Take responsibility for what you've done." "Dad, I didn't do anything. She's making this up." He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. My own parents didn't believe me. They'd chosen to believe Amber, someone they'd met maybe 5 times, over their own son. An hour later, my phone buzzed. A text from my younger brother Eric. He was 20, a junior at college in California. "Everyone at my college knows what you did," the text said. "You've embarrassed our whole family. Mom is devastated. Don't contact me again." Then he blocked my number. I was completely alone. No family support, no job, facing eviction. And in the middle of all this, I had to figure out how to defend myself against criminal charges. I found a criminal defense attorney through an online search. His name was Gary, and he was honest with me from the first meeting. He said these cases were tough. Even when the accused was innocent, the system was designed to protect accusers. But he also said he believed me after hearing my story, and he'd do everything he could. The retainer fee was $12,000. I emptied my retirement account to pay it. I was 23 years old and already destroying my future just to survive the present. Gary got to work immediately. He requested all the evidence. Amber's statement had inconsistencies. She claimed the assault happened at my apartment on a specific night, but Gary subpoenaed the building's security footage. The video showed Amber coming to my building that night, but she was only there for 20 minutes. She walked in looking fine and walked out looking fine, smiling even. Not the behavior of someone who'd just been assaulted. Gary also got my phone records and her phone records. On the night she claimed I assaulted her, she'd texted a friend afterward saying, "Just left Chandler's place. That jerk still won't give me my money. Going to make him pay." It was looking good. Gary said we had a strong defense. The prosecutor would have to see reason. But 3 weeks later, the prosecutor's office filed an amended complaint. Amber had added a second accusation. She now claimed there had been another incident 6 months earlier, one she'd been too afraid to report at the time. This one was worse because it was older. There was no security footage from 6 months ago, no text messages, no way to prove or disprove it. It was her word against mine, and in the court of public opinion, her word was winning. Gary filed motions to dismiss based on lack of evidence, but the judge denied them. The judge said a jury should decide. Trial was set for 4 months away. In the meantime, my life continued to crumble. My employer formally fired me, sending a terse email about protecting the company's reputation. I applied to dozens of other jobs, but every time I got close to an offer, they'd Google my name and see the accusations. The interviews would suddenly end. The offers would evaporate. I couldn't afford my apartment anymore, so I moved into a cheap motel on the outskirts of Portland. $40 a night, roaches in the bathroom, paper-thin walls. I started doing food delivery driving for one of those apps, just to make enough money to eat and pay for the motel. Every day felt like drowning. I'd wake up and remember all over again that this was real, that my family had abandoned me, that strangers wanted me dead, that I was facing prison time for something I didn't do. The trial date crept closer. 4 months felt like 4 years. The trial finally started on a cold morning in January. I sat next to Gary at the defense table, wearing the only suit I still owned. Across the aisle, Amber sat with the prosecutor, looking small and vulnerable. She'd dressed carefully for this. Modest clothing, minimal makeup, the perfect image of a victim. The prosecutor's opening statement painted me as a monster, a manipulative abuser who'd controlled and hurt an innocent woman. The jury listened with serious faces, taking notes. Gary's opening statement was calm and factual. He told them about the breakup, about Amber's demand for money, about her threat to make me pay. He told them to look at the evidence, not the emotion. The prosecution called Amber to the stand first. She cried through her testimony. She described the alleged assaults in detail, graphic and disturbing. I felt sick listening to her lie so convincingly. Some of the jurors were wiping their eyes. But then came cross-examination. Gary was brilliant. He asked her about the security footage. Why did she look happy leaving my building if I'd just hurt her? She said she was in shock, putting on a brave face. He asked her about the text message to her friend, the one about making me pay. She claimed it was taken out of context, that she'd meant she was going to report me to police, make me pay through the justice system. He asked her why she waited to report the second alleged assault, why she only mentioned it after the first accusation was falling apart. She said she'd been afraid, that reporting the first one had given her courage. The jury looked less certain now. Some of them were frowning. The prosecution called a few of Amber's friends as character witnesses. They all said she was honest and kind. They said they believed her. Then Gary called his witnesses. He called my former co-workers, who testified that Amber had shown up at my office making a scene, that her bruises could have been makeup. He called the building manager who confirmed the security footage timeline. He called a forensic expert who testified that the bruises in Amber's photos were inconsistent with her story, that they looked staged. And then Gary called Taylor. Taylor was a former friend of Amber's. They'd had a falling out a year ago. Taylor took the stand and dropped a bomb. She testified that 2 weeks after Amber filed the charges, they'd run into each other at a coffee shop. Amber had been drunk. She'd bragged about what she was doing to me. She'd said, exact words, "He thinks he can just dump me? I'm using the system to ruin him. He'll never recover from this." The courtroom went silent. The jury stared at Amber. The prosecutor looked panicked. Amber's lawyer tried to discredit Taylor on redirect, suggesting she was lying because of their past friendship issues. But the damage was done. Closing arguments happened 2 days later. The prosecutor tried to salvage the case, but Gary destroyed it. He pointed to every inconsistency, every piece of evidence that proved Amber was lying. He reminded the jury that, in America, you're innocent until proven guilty, that the burden was on the prosecution, that they hadn't met that burden. The jury deliberated for 90 minutes. When they came back, the forewoman stood up and read the verdict. Not guilty, on all counts. I collapsed into Gary's arms, weeping. After 8 months of hell, it was finally over. I was free, vindicated, but the relief lasted about 24 hours, because even though I'd been acquitted, the internet never forgets. The viral posts about me were still up. Amber's Facebook post had been shared over 2,000 times. People were commenting on the verdict, saying things like, "He got away with it, and money can buy anything, and acquittal doesn't mean innocent." Nobody posted about my innocence with the same enthusiasm they'd posted about my guilt. I applied for jobs again, hoping the verdict would change things. It didn't. Employers still Googled my name and saw the accusations. They saw the words rape and assault and trial, and they moved on to other candidates. The prosecutor's office issued a statement saying that while they respected the jury's decision, they stood by their decision to prosecute. They said they don't pursue charges against accusers because it might discourage real victims from coming forward. Amber faced 0 consequences. Nothing. No perjury charges. No filing false report charges. She continued posting on social media, playing the victim, saying the system had failed her. Her friends rallied around her. She became a local activist, speaking at events about how survivors aren't believed. And me? I was still broke, still unemployed, still living in that terrible motel. I decided to try one more time with my family. Surely the verdict would change their minds. Surely they'd see they'd been wrong. I called my mother. She answered this time. "Mom," I said. "The jury found me not guilty. I was innocent. I've been telling you the truth this whole time." There was a long pause. Then she said, "A jury decision doesn't change what we know in our hearts, Chandler. That poor girl suffered. You're hiding behind technicalities." "Technicalities? Mom, I was innocent. The jury saw the evidence." My father took the phone from her. "We've moved on, Chandler," he said. "Eric is applying to graduate schools. He doesn't need your drama following him around. Don't call here again." The line went dead. I stood there in my motel room, phone in hand, and realized something devastating. The acquittal meant nothing to them. They'd chosen their narrative, and they were sticking to it. Not because they believed it, but because admitting they were wrong would be too uncomfortable. They'd already told their friends and church community that they'd disowned me for what I'd done. They'd already played the part of devastated parents with a terrible son. Changing that story now would mean admitting they'd abandoned an innocent man. Their own child. That was too hard. So they just kept pretending I was guilty. I was vindicated in court, but still guilty in the only court that really mattered to me, my family's. The months after the trial were the darkest of my life. I fell into a depression so deep I could barely function. I kept doing food delivery to survive, but I was just going through the motions. Wake up, drive, deliver food, sleep, repeat. I couldn't afford therapy. I couldn't afford anything. My credit cards were maxed out from legal fees and living expenses. I was drowning in debt with no way out. Then, 6 months after the trial, I got a break. A small tech startup was hiring for a marketing position. It wasn't fancy, but it was in my field. I applied, being upfront about my background, including the trial and acquittal. They called me in for an interview. The hiring manager was young, maybe 30. He'd researched my case. He said he believed in second chances, and that the court documents made it clear I'd been wrongfully accused. He offered me the job. I nearly cried right there in his office. Finally, something was going my way. The salary wasn't great, but it was enough to get out of the motel, find a real apartment, start rebuilding. I was supposed to start in 2 weeks. I went back to the motel that night feeling hope for the first time in over a year. 3 days later, the hiring manager called me. His voice was stiff, uncomfortable. He said he was sorry, but they were rescinding the offer. When I asked why, he hesitated. Then he admitted they'd received an email from someone claiming to be a victim in my case. The email had detailed allegations and warned that I was dangerous, that they needed to protect their female employees. It was Amber. Had to be. Somehow she'd found out about the job offer. Maybe through a mutual acquaintance who'd seen something on social media. I don't know. But she'd sabotaged me again. I begged the hiring manager to reconsider, to look at the court records, to understand this was harassment from someone trying to destroy my life. He apologized again and hung up. I lost it. I sent Amber a text, the first contact I'd initiated in over a year. I begged her to stop. I asked her why she was still doing this when she'd already taken everything from me. She responded within minutes. You humiliated me in court, made me look like a liar in front of everyone. I'll make sure you never have a normal life again. You deserve this. I showed the text to Gary, my lawyer. He said we could maybe pursue a civil harassment case, but it would cost more money I didn't have. And even if we won, she probably had no assets to collect from. It would be throwing good money after bad. A week later, my motel manager knocked on my door. Someone had sent an anonymous letter to the motel, detailing my criminal history, as they called it. The manager said he had to ask me to leave. Other guests had complained after seeing the letter. I was so tired, so defeated. I packed my few belongings and left. I drove 3 hours north to Tacoma, Washington, a new city where nobody knew me. I found a studio apartment in a rough neighborhood and started over. I began using my middle name professionally, James, on job applications. It was a small deception, but it worked. I got hired as a warehouse supervisor at a logistics company. The background check came back clean because they were only looking for James Chandler, and all the news articles used my first name only. The job was hard, 12-hour shifts of physical labor and management, but I was grateful for it. I kept my head down. Didn't make friends. Didn't date. Didn't join social media. Just worked and came home to my empty apartment. Meanwhile, I'd see updates about my family through distant cousins who hadn't blocked me. My brother Eric got engaged. My parents posted happy photos on Facebook. Family gatherings with Eric and his fiancée. Big smiles. Perfect family portrait. Except, I wasn't in it. I'd been erased, completely. For 6 months, I worked at the warehouse. I was good at my job. My boss liked me. I saved a little money. Life wasn't good, but it was stable. That was more than I'd had in a long time. Then Amber found me again. I still don't know how. Maybe she hired someone to track me down. Maybe she just got lucky. But one day, she showed up at my warehouse during my shift. I was doing a safety inspection in the loading dock when I heard shouting. I turned around and there she was, pointing at me, yelling, "That's him. That's the man who assaulted me." My coworkers stopped what they were doing. My boss came running over. Amber was making a huge scene, crying, screaming that she couldn't believe I was working around other people, that I was dangerous. Security escorted her out, but the damage was done. My boss pulled me into his office. I explained everything, showed him the court documents on my phone, the acquittal, everything. To his credit, he believed me. He said he wasn't going to fire me over false accusations from an ex, but Amber wasn't done. 2 days later, I was served with a restraining order. She'd filed paperwork claiming I was stalking her, that I'd followed her to Tacoma, that I was harassing her. All lies. But the judge granted a temporary order based on her testimony alone. Now, I had a restraining order on my record, even though it was based on lies, even though I'd never contacted her or followed her. It was there, official, another black mark that made me look guilty. My boss called me back into his office a week later. He said he still believed me, but the situation was causing too many problems. Other employees were uncomfortable. There'd been complaints about the disruption Amber had caused. The restraining order made the company nervous from a liability standpoint. He was sorry, but he had to let me go. I was back to nothing. No job, barely any savings. Credit cards maxed out again from the cost of living in Tacoma. I sat in my car in the warehouse parking lot after cleaning out my locker, and I thought about giving up, just driving away and never stopping. Or maybe stopping permanently. I spent 2 weeks living in my car, parked in different places each night to avoid trouble. I'd shower at a 24-hour gym I still had a membership to. I'd eat whatever cheap food I could afford. I'd apply for jobs during the day using the free Wi-Fi at libraries. Nothing worked. Every door was closed. Every opportunity vanished. I was 25 years old and I had nothing. No family, no job, no home, no future. One night, I parked near a bridge over the Columbia River. I sat there for hours, staring at the dark water below, thinking about how easy it would be to just end all of this. The pain, the humiliation, the hopelessness. I was so tired of fighting. I got out of my car and walked to the middle of the bridge, put my hands on the railing, looked down. That's when I heard a voice behind me. "You okay there, son?" I turned around. An older man, maybe 60, was walking toward me. He had kind eyes and work-worn hands. He stopped a few feet away, like he didn't want to spook me. "I'm fine," I said automatically. He nodded slowly. "It's just that I've been where you're standing, long time ago, and I wasn't fine either." We stood there in silence for a minute. Then he said, "My name's Walter. You want to talk about it?" I don't know why, but I started talking. Maybe because he was a stranger. Maybe because I had nothing left to lose. I told him everything. The false accusation, the trial, the acquittal that meant nothing, my family abandoning me, Amber stalking me, losing every job, living in my car. All of it just poured out. Walter listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I was falsely accused too, 30 years ago. Different circumstances, but same result. Lost my family, my job, my reputation. Took me years to rebuild." "You rebuilt?" I asked. He smiled. "I did. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't the same life I had before. But it was a good life, maybe even better, because I built it myself with people who actually gave a damn about the truth." We talked for another hour on that bridge. He told me his story, how he'd survived, how he'd found work with people who believed in second chances, how he'd eventually started his own small construction company. Then he said something I'll never forget. "You know what the hardest part is? It's not the people who hate you. It's learning to live without the people who were supposed to love you. But here's the secret. Family isn't who shares your blood. Family is who shows up." He gave me his business card. "Come by my office tomorrow," he said. "I need a good worker who knows what it's like to get knocked down. Cash under the table, no background check needed. We'll start there and see where it goes." I showed up the next morning, unsure if the offer was real. It was. Walter ran a small construction company with about 15 employees. He put me to work immediately, doing basic labor at first, carrying materials, cleaning job sites, learning the trade. The work was hard, physical and demanding, but it felt good to be useful again, to build things instead of watching my life crumble. Walter paid me fairly and treated me with respect. For the first time in years, someone looked at me and saw a person, not a headline. I rented a small house on the outskirts of Tacoma. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. 4 walls and a door that locked. After living in my car, it felt like a palace. I stayed off social media completely. Didn't date. Didn't socialize much. Just worked, saved money, and tried to heal. About 6 months after Walter hired me, he invited me to volunteer with him at a Habitat for Humanity build. I almost said no. I wasn't ready to be around people, but Walter encouraged me, said it would be good for me. That's where I met Harper. She was volunteering too, painting interior walls on a house. She had blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, paint splattered on her jeans, and the kindest smile I'd ever seen. We got assigned to work on the same room. We talked while we painted. Small talk at first. She was a nurse at the local hospital, 26 years old. She'd grown up in Tacoma. She loved hiking and reading, and terrible reality TV shows. She asked what I did. I told her I worked construction. She didn't press for more details, and I was grateful. We volunteered together for the next 3 Saturdays. Each time we talked a little more. She made me laugh, something I hadn't done in years. She was easy to be around, genuine. After the 4th Saturday, she asked if I wanted to get coffee sometime. My stomach dropped. I wasn't ready. I couldn't drag someone else into my mess, but I also couldn't say no to her. So I said yes. We went to a small cafe near the hospital, talked for 3 hours. She told me about her family, her job, her dreams of traveling. I told her surface-level things about my life, careful to avoid the dark parts. At the end, she said she'd like to see me again. I said I'd like that too. We started dating slowly, very slowly. I was terrified the whole time. Terrified she'd Google my name and find everything. Terrified Amber would somehow sabotage this too. Terrified I'd get close to someone only to lose them. But Harper was patient. She didn't push. We just spent time together. Walks in the park, cooking dinner at my place, watching movies. Normal things that felt revolutionary after years of chaos. 6 months into dating, I knew I had to tell her. She deserved to know the truth before this went any further. We were sitting on my couch one evening after dinner. I took a deep breath and said, "There's something I need to tell you about my past. It's bad, and after I tell you, you might not want to see me anymore. But you deserve to know." Her face got serious. "Okay," she said. I told her everything. Every awful detail. The false accusation, the trial, the acquittal, my family abandoning me, Amber stalking me, the jobs I'd lost, living in my car, the bridge, Walter saving me. I pulled up the court documents on my phone and showed her. The acquittal, the evidence, the news articles, all of it. When I finished, I was shaking. Harper was quiet, processing. Then she took my hand. "I believe you," she said, "and I'm so sorry that happened to you." "You believe me?" I asked. She nodded. "I see who you are, Chandler. I've spent months getting to know you. I've seen your character. And yes, I believe you." I started crying. I couldn't help it. Someone believed me. Someone chose to see me instead of the accusations. We kept dating, kept building something real. After 2 years together, I proposed. Nothing fancy, just the 2 of us on a hiking trail overlooking Mount Rainier. She said yes. We had a small wedding. Walter walked me down the aisle, the father figure I'd needed all along. Harper's family welcomed me with open arms. They knew my story and didn't care. They judged me on who I was, not what I'd been accused of. Life started to feel good. Really good. Walter promoted me to foreman at the construction company. I took night classes online in project management. Harper and I bought a modest house with a yard. She got pregnant within the year. Our daughter was born on a sunny morning in May. We named her Grace. Holding her in my arms for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Pure, uncomplicated hope. I was 28 years old. 5 years had passed since the accusation. I'd survived. More than survived. I'd built a life worth living. Then, 2 months after Grace was born, I got a Facebook message from my brother Eric. The subject line said, "We need to talk." My stomach dropped. I almost deleted it without reading. But curiosity won. I opened it. Mom has been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. She's declining fast. Dad's retirement funds are running out because of medical bills. I'm drowning in student loans. We saw your wedding photos online somehow. You look successful. We're family. We should reconnect. Mom asks about you sometimes. I read it 3 times. There was no apology. No acknowledgement of what they'd done to me. No recognition of the 5 years they'd missed. Just need. Transactional, calculated need. I showed Harper the message. She read it, and her face darkened. "Are you kidding me?" she said. "After everything they did, they want money?" "I think so," I said. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know." Eric didn't wait for my response to the message. He started calling. At first, I didn't answer, but he called every day for a week. Finally, I picked up. "Chandler," he said, like we talked every day, like the last 5 years hadn't happened. "Did you get my message?" "I did." "So, are you going to help or not?" "Eric," I said slowly, "we haven't spoken in 5 years. You blocked me. You all believed I was guilty of something terrible without even hearing my side. That was a long time ago," he said dismissively. "Water under the bridge. Mom's sick. She needs help. Family helps family. You didn't help me when I needed family." He sighed like I was being difficult. "Look, I don't want to rehash old drama. We need $25,000 for Mom's care facility, and I need about $15,000 for my student loans, or I'm going to default. You've clearly done well for yourself. You can afford it." I felt anger rising in my chest. "How do you know I've done well? I saw your wedding photos. Looked nice. And you own a house, right?" Harper posted something about it. He'd been stalking my social media through Harper's accounts, calculating what he could get from me. "I need time to think about this," I said. "Don't take too long," Eric replied. "The facility wants the money by the end of the month, and I can't put off my loans much longer." He hung up before I could respond. Over the next 2 weeks, Eric called me 5 more times. Each time, he was more insistent, more demanding. He started guilt-tripping me, saying Mom didn't have much time left, that I'd regret not helping when she was gone, that Dad was struggling and needed support. I talked it over with Harper. She was firmly against giving them anything. "They abandoned you when you needed them most," she said. "And now they show up asking for money without even apologizing? No way." But I couldn't shake the feeling that maybe I should help. Not for them, but for me. To be the bigger person. To prove I wasn't who they'd thought I was. Then they showed up unannounced. It was a Saturday afternoon. Harper and I were in the backyard with Grace. She was almost 3 months old, lying on a blanket under a tree. We were just enjoying the summer weather. The doorbell rang. I went to answer it, expecting a delivery. Instead, my parents and brother were standing on my porch. I froze. I hadn't seen them in 5 years. My mother looked older, frailer. Her eyes had that distant quality that comes with Alzheimer's. My father looked tired but still had that stern expression I remembered. Eric stood behind them, arms crossed. "Chandler," my father said, "we need to talk." I should have closed the door, but I was too shocked. I stepped aside and let them in. Harper appeared from the backyard, carrying Grace. When she saw them, her face hardened. She knew exactly who they were. My parents and Eric sat in our living room like they owned the place. My mother kept looking around, confused. She didn't seem to recognize where she was. My father started talking immediately. "Eric told us about your situation. You're doing well. You have a nice home, a family. That's good. We're glad you landed on your feet." "I didn't land on my feet," I said. "I rebuilt from nothing. After you all threw me away." "Let's not dwell on the past," my father said. "We're here because we need help. Your mother needs proper care. I can't afford it on my retirement. Eric needs support with his education debt. Your family. You should contribute." "Contribute? Dad, you disowned me. You believed I was a rapist without even asking for my side of the story." "We were protecting Eric's future," he said, like it was obvious. "His college applications were happening. There was scandal. We did what we thought was best for the family." I stared at him. "For the family? I was part of this family. You were always going to be fine," he said. "You're resourceful. Eric needed our support more." Harper spoke up from the doorway, her voice cold. "You need to leave. Now." My father looked at her like she was interrupting. "This is family business." "I'm his family," Harper said. "His real family. And you're not welcome here." Eric stood up. "Come on, Chandler. Be reasonable. Mom doesn't have much time left. You want her last months to be in some terrible state-run facility? My mother spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, confused. Are you Chandler? She asked, looking at me. You look like my son. I had a son named Chandler. It was like a knife to the chest. Her disease had progressed so far she barely recognized me. I'm Chandler, Mom, I said gently. She smiled vaguely. I miss him. He left a long time ago. I don't remember why. My father put his hand on her shoulder. It's okay, Carol. Then he looked at me. So, are you going to help or not? You've never apologized, I said. Any of you. You've never acknowledged what you did to me. Eric rolled his eyes. What do you want, some dramatic apology scene? Fine. I'm sorry we didn't believe you. There. Happy? Now will you help? That's not an apology, Harper said. That's manipulation. My father stood up, his face reddening. We came here in good faith. We're trying to reconcile. But you're making this difficult. If you don't want to help your own mother, fine. But don't blame us for protecting our family when you were in trouble. I was innocent, I shouted. The court proved it. The court proved nothing, my father said. Plenty of guilty people walk free. We know what we believe. And there it was. After 5 years, after all the evidence, they still thought I was guilty. Or at least, they'd convinced themselves I was to justify what they'd done. Eric pulled out his phone. Look, we've already told the whole extended family that we're reconciling with you. Grandma, the aunts, the uncles, everyone. We posted on Facebook about it. We told them you're coming to my wedding next month. You did what? I asked. Eric shrugged. We told everyone we're a happy family again. That we've worked through our issues. So you kind of have to go along with it now. Unless you want to embarrass the whole family by refusing. My father nodded. The wedding is 4 weeks from now. Eric's fiance's family is very traditional. They don't know about any of this past trouble. Let's just move forward as a family. Help with the expenses. Come to the wedding. Act normal. And if I don't, my father's expression turned cold. Then we'll tell everyone the truth. About what you did. We'll make sure your new community knows exactly who you are. That pretty life you've built, we can destroy it just as easily as you're destroying our family right now. It was a threat. Plain and simple. Pay up and play along, or they'd try to ruin my life again. Harper was furious. Get out of our house. Right now. Before I call the police. My father stood. Think about it, Chandler. Think about what's more important. Your pride, or your family. They left. My mother shuffled out with my father guiding her. She looked back at me once with confused eyes, not sure who I was or why she was leaving. When they were gone, Harper and I just stood there. Grace started crying, sensing the tension. I picked up my daughter and held her close. They haven't changed, I said. Not at all. No, Harper agreed. They're even worse. They think they can manipulate you with guilt and threats. What do I do? Harper looked at me. You protect our family. You don't let them anywhere near Grace. And you don't give them a single dollar. She was right. I knew she was right. But it still hurt. Some part of me had hoped that maybe, just maybe, they'd come to apologize. To acknowledge what they'd done. To try to make amends. But they hadn't. They'd come for money. And they'd threatened me when I hesitated. That night, after Harper and Grace were asleep, I sat in my home office thinking. I thought about everything they'd done, everything they'd missed, my trial, my acquittal, my darkest days, my wedding, the birth of my daughter. 5 years of my life they'd chosen not to be part of, and now they wanted back in. Not because they loved me, not because they were sorry, but because they needed something from me. I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. In my state, Washington, you only need one-party consent to record conversations. I'd learned that during my legal troubles. I'd recorded their entire visit. I listened to it again. Eric's casual admission. We knew you probably didn't do it, okay? But it was easier to just cut ties than deal with the scandal. My father's agreement. We did what we thought was best for the family, for Eric's future. You were always going to be fine. They'd known. Or at least strongly suspected I was innocent. and they'd abandon me anyway because it was convenient. I had an idea. A way to protect myself, and maybe, finally, get some justice. The next morning, I called a different lawyer. Not Gary, who'd handled my criminal case, but someone who specialized in family law and civil matters. Her name was Patricia. I explained the situation, showed her the recording, asked her what my options were. She listened carefully. Then she said, "They're essentially trying to extort you, using family obligation and threats to your reputation. The recording proves they knew you were likely innocent but chose convenience over truth. That's damaging to their credibility if they try to spread lies about you now." "What should I do?" Patricia smiled. "You have leverage now. You can send a cease and desist letter making it clear you won't tolerate harassment or defamation. But more than that, you can set the record straight with your extended family. Tell them the truth. All of it, with documentation." Over the next week, I prepared a detailed letter. I wrote down the entire timeline. The false accusation, the trial, the acquittal, the evidence that proved my innocence, my family's abandonment, their refusal to apologize even after the verdict, their recent appearance demanding money. I included links to court documents, character references from Walter, from Harper's family, from people in my current community who knew me and trusted me. I included the recording of their visit, with Eric's admission that they'd known I probably didn't do it. I sent this letter via email to every extended family member I could find contact information for. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents, family friends, people my parents had probably told some version of events to over the past 5 years. The subject line was simple: the truth about why I've been absent. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, I started getting replies. My Aunt Sarah called me crying, apologizing for believing the lies my parents had told her. She said she'd always wondered why I'd just disappeared, but my parents had said I'd moved away and didn't want contact with the family. My cousin Jordan reached out. He was furious at my parents. He'd been at my trial and believed in my innocence, but my parents had cut him off for supporting me. He'd respected their wishes and stayed away from me, but now he understood it was all manipulation. My grandmother, my mother's mother, called me. She was 87 and sharp as a tack. She said she'd suspected something was wrong, that my parents had been dodgy about the details. She said she was proud of me for surviving and building a good life. She wanted to meet Harper and Grace. Over the next few days, about 15 extended family members reached out. Some apologized. Some were angry at my parents. Some just wanted to reconnect. They'd been fed lies about me abandoning the family, about me being guilty but getting off on technicalities, about me refusing to help my sick mother. Now they knew the truth. My parents found out when the family group text, which I wasn't part of, exploded with questions and accusations. Eric called me, furious. "What did you do?" he shouted. "I told the truth," I said calmly. "Something you all refused to do for 5 years. You've destroyed our reputation. Dad is getting calls from everyone. They think we're terrible people." "You are terrible people," I said. "You abandoned your son when he was innocent. You knew I probably didn't do it, and you cut me off anyway because it was convenient. You let me suffer for 5 years, and then you showed up demanding money without even an apology." Eric sputtered. "You can't just air family business like this. You made it public when Amber posted about me online, and you all believed her without question. You made it public when you told everyone I was a monster. I'm just correcting the record. Dad wants you to retract it," Eric said, "to send another email saying you made a mistake." I laughed. "Not happening. You want people to stop thinking badly of you? Then apologize. Take accountability. But I'm done protecting your reputation at the cost of my own." Eric hung up on me. My father called next. He tried to sound reasonable at first. "Chandler, this has gotten out of hand. We should talk in person. Work this out like adults." "I don't have anything to work out," I said. "I protected myself from further harassment. That's all." His voice hardened. "You've made your mother's condition worse with this stress. She's confused about why people are calling and asking questions. Mom didn't even recognize me when you brought her here, I said. And you're using her illness to manipulate me, which is disgusting. Fine, he said. You want to be alone. You've got it. Don't expect anything from us ever again. I haven't expected anything from you for 5 years, Dad. I've built a life without you. A good life. And I'm going to keep living it. He hung up. Eric's wedding happened 3 weeks later. I obviously didn't go. But I heard through cousins that it was awkward. Several family members had declined to attend after learning what my parents had done. Eric's fiance's family kept asking questions about the missing brother, and Eric had to make up excuses. The wedding photos that got posted online showed much smaller attendance than they'd planned. The smiles looked forced. Meanwhile, my life kept getting better. Walter officially retired and sold me his share of the construction business. I was now the primary owner of a successful company with 20 employees. Harper went back to work part-time at the hospital. Grace grew bigger every day, hitting milestones, filling our home with laughter. We had Sunday dinners with Walter every week. He'd become the grandfather Grace would never have from my side of the family. Harper's parents visited regularly, doting on their granddaughter. My cousin Jordan and his wife became close friends. My Aunt Sarah and grandmother made efforts to be part of our lives. I had a family, just not the one I was born into. When Grace turned 1 year old, we had a birthday party in our backyard. It was full of people who loved us. Walter helped me grill. Harper's mother decorated. Cousins and friends brought presents. Grace smashed a cake while everyone laughed and took pictures. In the middle of the party, my phone buzzed. Another message from Eric. I didn't even read it, just deleted it, and turned off my phone. Harper noticed. Them again? She asked. Doesn't matter, I said. They're not real. That night, after everyone left and Grace was asleep, Harper and I sat on our back porch. The same porch where my parents had stood months ago, demanding money and threatening me. Do you regret it? Harper asked. Cutting them off completely? I thought about it. No, I said. I used to think I needed their validation to heal, their apology, their acknowledgement that they were wrong. But I was looking for something they'll never give me. They're not capable of it. What do you think they're capable of? Living in denial. Protecting their own narrative. Missing out on everything good because they're too proud to admit they were wrong. Harper took my hand. Their loss. Yeah, I said. It really is. I thought about what I'd tell my children someday. About resilience. About truth. About the difference between the family you're born into and the family you choose. My parents and brother had chosen comfort over courage. They'd chosen their reputation over their son. They'd had 5 years to make different choices, to reach out with humility, to apologize, to try to make amends. Instead, they'd only come back when they needed something. And when I didn't give it to them, they tried to threaten and manipulate me. Again, but I wasn't the broken 23-year-old sitting in that police station anymore. I wasn't the desperate man living in his car. I'd survived the worst thing I could imagine. I'd rebuilt from nothing. I'd found people who valued truth and character over convenience. I'd won, not in court, not against Amber, who I'd heard had moved to another state and was likely ruining someone else's life now. But I'd won, in the ways that actually mattered. I had a wife who believed in me, a daughter who would grow up knowing her father as a man of integrity, a business I'd built with my own hands, friends and extended family who chose to know the real me. My parents and brother would never know any of it. They'd never know Harper's kindness. They'd never watch Grace grow up. They'd never see the man I'd become after surviving what they put me through. They'd chosen to miss all of it, and I was finally okay with that, because I'd learned the hardest lesson life can teach you. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally will fail you in the worst ways possible. And when that happens, you have two choices. You can spend your life trying to earn their love and approval, or you can build a life worth living without them. I chose the second option, and it saved me. I looked at Harper, sitting next to me in the home we'd built together. I thought about Grace sleeping upstairs in her nursery. I thought about the business I owned, the employees who depended on me, the customers who trusted me. I thought about Walter, who'd seen me on that bridge and decided I was worth saving. This was my family now. These were my people, and I'd protect them with everything I had. My phone buzzed again. Another message from my father this time. I glanced at it. "We need to talk about your inheritance and will. You're still listed. We need to discuss terms. Always transactional. Always about what they needed from me." I blocked his number. Then I blocked Eric's number. Then I went through and blocked every pathway they had to contact me. Harper watched me do it. "Good," she said. "Good," I agreed. We sat there in comfortable silence as the sun set. Tomorrow, I'd wake up and go to work. I'd come home to my family. I'd build something, fix something, create something. I'd live my life surrounded by people who actually showed up, and my parents and brother would keep living theirs, surrounded by the consequences of their choices. That was justice enough for me. So let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by the people who were supposed to support you no matter what? Have you had to choose between chasing someone's approval and building your own happiness? What would you do if your family demanded you forgive them without ever apologizing? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories about survival, resilience, and finding your real family. Share this with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to walk away from toxic people, even if they're related to you. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to tell, but I hope it helps someone out there who's going through something similar. Remember, family isn't just blood. Family is who shows up. Family is who believes in you. Family is who stays. I wish you all the strength to build the life you deserve, surrounded by people who see your worth. Take care of yourselves and each other.